The banishment. Kevin Hayes looked out the window of the transport ship, watching Earth grow smaller in the distance. Like millions of other humans, he was being forced to leave his home. Just 6 months ago, humanity had made its first contact with the Galactic Council. Instead of welcome, they received judgment. Too aggressive and unpredictable, the Council representatives had declared after reviewing human history. Their punishment was exile to the Outer Rim, a dangerous region of space that other species avoided. "We should consider ourselves lucky," said a voice beside him. Kevin turned to see Lisa Morgan, an engineer he had met during the evacuation preparations. "At least they didn't decide to eliminate us entirely." Kevin's jaw tightened. "Lucky? They're sending us to die slowly instead of quickly." Lisa shook her head. "No, they're sending us somewhere they don't think we can survive. But they don't understand humans very well." The transport ship was crowded with families carrying whatever possessions they could bring. Children cried, parents whispered reassurances they didn't believe, and elderly people sat with distant looks in their eyes, having already lost one home in their lifetime. Kevin had been part of Earth's diplomatic team. He had tried to convince the Council that humans deserved a chance to join the galactic community. He had failed. "We're heading to Colony 17, Lisa said, checking her datapad. "It's a moon orbiting a gas giant. Harsh radiation, minimal resources." "Sounds delightful," Kevin replied bitterly. "Actually, it might be. I've been studying the preliminary scans. There are elements there that the Council races don't typically mine. They might have overlooked something valuable." 3 weeks later, their transport landed on Colony 17. The sky was a perpetual purple-gray due to the gas giant that dominated the horizon. The gravity was slightly stronger than Earth's, and the air had a metallic smell. The first months were difficult. Shelters needed to be built, water purification systems established, and food grown in carefully controlled environments. Death was common in those early days, from accidents, illness, and sometimes despair. Kevin found himself working alongside Lisa, who had become the colony's lead engineer. Her optimism never wavered, even as problems mounted. "Look at this," she said one evening, showing him a strange metal alloy she had created from local materials. "It's lighter than steel, but twice as strong, and it can withstand the radiation here. The Council races would never have discovered this because their biology can't handle being on this moon long enough to mine it." Similar discoveries were happening across the scattered human colonies. Despite being cut off from each other, humans everywhere were adapting, finding ways to use their harsh environments to their advantage. 6 months after landing, Colony 17 received its first communication from another human settlement. Colony 4 had managed to repair and enhance an old communications array. One by one, the colonies began to connect. "We need to formalize this," Kevin said during a meeting with colony leaders. "If we stay isolated, we'll remain weak. United, we might have a chance." Lisa agreed. "We've already developed technologies the Council doesn't have. If we share our knowledge across all colonies, who knows what we might achieve." The Coalition of Free Worlds was born that day, with representatives from each colony agreeing to pool resources and knowledge. 1 year after the exile began, Kevin stood with Lisa on a hilltop overlooking Colony 17. What had once been a barren landing site was now a growing settlement with sturdy buildings and small farms under protected domes. "They thought this would be our end," Kevin said quietly. "Instead, it's just our beginning." Lisa nodded. "The Council exiled us because they feared what we might become. Perhaps they were right to be afraid." As the gas giant set on the horizon, casting long shadows across the colony, Kevin made a silent promise. Humanity would not merely survive their exile. They would transform it into the foundation of something greater than the Galactic Council could imagine. 50 years had passed since humanity's exile to the Outer Rim. What began as a death sentence had transformed into an unexpected renaissance. Noah Clark stood on the observation deck of Outpost Horizon, watching the swirling radiation belts of the nearby neutron star. Most species avoided such dangerous cosmic phenomena, but humans had learned to harness what others feared. "The latest readings confirm it," said his assistant, pointing to data flowing across their screens. "The particle accelerator effect in the radiation belt is exactly what we predicted." Noah had spent 5 years developing his theory that these radiation belts could serve as natural particle accelerators, providing nearly limitless energy if properly tapped. The Council races had never discovered this because their vessels couldn't withstand the radiation long enough to study it. "Begin the harvesting sequence," Noah ordered. The outpost extended massive collection arrays into the radiation stream. Energy readings immediately spiked. This discovery would change everything. Already, the scattered human colonies had advanced far beyond the Council's expectations. Noah's energy harvesting technology would accelerate that progress exponentially. Across the coalition of free worlds, similar breakthroughs were occurring. On Colony 23, Maria Sanchez put the finishing touches on her neural interface network. "Try it now," she told her volunteer test subject, a young colony defender named Alan. Alan closed his eyes as the neural interface activated. Within seconds, he was processing information at speeds no unaugmented human could match. His reflexes increased, his perception expanded. "I can see the weapon system's calculations before they even appear on the display," he said in amazement. "I can feel the ship systems like they're extensions of my body." Maria nodded, pleased but not surprised. "That's exactly what it's designed to do. The Council races rely on AI for their advanced ships. We're creating a hybrid approach, human intuition and creativity, accelerated by the neural network." Meanwhile, at the newly established Wright shipyards, Daniel Wright watched as the first vessel of the new fleet took shape. Unlike the cumbersome Council ships designed to accommodate multiple species, these vessels were built specifically for human physiology and psychology. "The maneuverability is unlike anything we've seen before," Daniel explained to visiting officials from other colonies. "Council ship designs waste space and energy trying to be universal. Our ships leverage human strengths, our endurance, our adaptability, our willingness to take risks." The ship before them, the CNS Defiance, had half the mass of a comparable Council vessel, but more effective firepower and significantly greater speed. Additionally, Daniel continued, "We've incorporated Noah Clarke's energy harvesting technology and Maria Sanchez's neural interfaces. This isn't just a warship, it's a statement of human potential." The coalition leadership had been careful to keep their advancements quiet. Occasional trading vessels from minor Council species brought news from the greater galaxy, and humans listened carefully while revealing little. According to these reports, the Council largely ignored the exiled humans. When reports of human adaptation did reach Council ears, they were dismissed as exaggerations. After all, how could a primitive species thrive in such hostile environments? This misconception served humanity well. While the Council's attention was focused elsewhere, the coalition of free worlds grew stronger. They established secure trade networks between colonies, shared technological innovations, and began mapping the unexplored regions of the Outer Rim. In the coalition's primary meeting chamber on Colony 1, representatives gathered to discuss their future. "The Council believes they sentenced us to a slow extinction," said the coalition's elected leader. "Instead, they gave us the freedom to evolve without their constraints. Their arrogance will be their undoing." The gathered representatives nodded in agreement. Humans had not just survived in the harsh frontier, they had discovered strengths they never knew they possessed. Soon, the galaxy would learn that exiling humanity had been the Council's greatest mistake. The species they had banished and overlooked was forging an empire in the darkness of the Outer Rim, an empire that would one day emerge from the shadows and change the balance of power forever. The colony alarm sirens wailed across Settlement 5. Captain John Foster raced to the Defense Center, where tactical displays showed what everyone had feared. The Vorax had returned. The Vorax were insectoid raiders who had plagued the Outer Rim for centuries. When humans were first exiled, the Vorax saw them as easy prey. Several smaller colonies had already been destroyed before the coalition realized the threat. 3 carrier ships approaching, Captain, reported the sensor operator. Estimated arrival in 20 minutes. John nodded grimly. Alert the civilian shelters. Launch all defense vessels. Settlement 5 was more prepared than previous human colonies. They had 6 small combat ships equipped with Maria Sanchez's neural interfaces and powered by Noel Clarke's energy systems. But the Vorax had brought over 30 attack craft. "We're outnumbered," said John's second-in-command. Yes, John agreed, but not outmatched. The human vessels took formation above the colony. Through their neural interfaces, the pilots shared information instantly, functioning as a single organism rather than individual ships. When the Vorax attacked, they expected the scattered, panicked response they'd seen from other species. Instead, the human ships moved with uncanny coordination, predicting Vorax tactics and exploiting weaknesses in their formation. "They're breaking apart," called one pilot as the Vorax ships scattered in confusion. 2 human vessels were lost in the battle, but all 3 Vorax carriers were destroyed. It was the first decisive victory against a major outer rim predator species. Word of the victory spread quickly through the coalition. The Vorax, who had terrorized this sector for generations, had been defeated by the newcomers. More importantly, the Vorax retreat left behind several resource-rich systems that they had controlled. Susan Wallace, the coalition's chief xenotechnologist, led the exploration of abandoned Vorax stations. "Look at this," she said, examining a piece of Vorax navigation equipment. "Their faster-than-light technology is completely different from the Council standard." She turned to her team. "If we can understand this and integrate it with our own systems, we could create hybrid technology that neither the Council nor the Vorax would recognize." Over the next months, Susan's team made remarkable progress. They combined human innovation with Vorax technology, creating ships that could travel faster and more efficiently than either human or Vorax vessels alone. The coalition leadership met to discuss their unexpected opportunity. "The Vorax won't stay away forever," said the defense minister. "But we now have access to resources we desperately need and time to strengthen our position. We should establish permanent settlements in these systems," suggested another leader. "Form a buffer zone between our core colonies and potential threats." The expansion began carefully. First came mining operations to harvest critical materials. Then small military outposts. Finally, civilian settlements. What had been Vorax territory gradually transformed into human space. Other species in the outer rim noticed this expansion. Some feared these newcomers would become the next oppressors. Others saw potential allies against common threats. The Meridian, a peaceful species who had also been pushed to the outer rim by the Council, sent representatives to Colony 1. "We have watched how you defeated the Vorax," their ambassador said. "For centuries, they'd raided our worlds. We would discuss alliance." Similar delegations arrived from other marginalized species. The humans, once isolated, were becoming a nexus of cooperation among the forgotten peoples of the Outer Rim. In response to these developments, the coalition formalized its government structure. No longer just a loose alliance of survival, it became the foundation of the Terran Commonwealth, named for the Earth most humans would never see again. The Commonwealth established uniform laws, coordinated defense, and shared technological development across all human settlements and allied species. What began as exiled refugees had, in just a few generations, become an emerging power. On a newly established human colony in former Vorax space, John Foster, now an admiral, watched settlers building their homes. "They sent us here to disappear," he said to Susan Wallace, who had come to establish a research center. "Instead, we're building something the galaxy has never seen before." Susan smiled. "And this is just the beginning." The mining facility on Proxima IV hummed with activity as workers extracted the rare quantum crystals from deep within the moon's crust. These crystals, discovered in what had once been Vorax territory, possessed unique properties that made faster-than-light travel more efficient and stable. What humans hadn't realized was that such materials were extraordinarily valuable throughout the galaxy. The Council races had never found them because they'd avoided the radiation-heavy regions where humans now thrived. Paul Bennett, the Commonwealth's chief trade negotiator, received the urgent message while finalizing agreements with minor Outer Rim species. The Exiled Consortium has dispatched a fleet to Proxima IV. The message read, "They claim the moon is within their historical territory." Hall knew this was false. The Exiled, one of the powerful trading blocs within the Galactic Council, had never shown interest in the Outer Rim until reports of valuable resources reached them. Within days, a Exiled diplomatic vessel arrived at the Commonwealth's nearest outpost. Their representatives, tall beings with iridescent scales, made their demands clear. These resources are too important to be controlled by newcomers, the Exiled ambassador stated, barely concealing his contempt. "We offer payment for your mining equipment before you depart." Paul remained calm. The Commonwealth has established legal claim to these territories following the Vorax retreat. We are open to fair trade agreements, but we will not abandon our settlements. The ambassador's scales rippled with anger. Then you force us to enforce council law in these sectors. 3 days later, a Exiled battle group dropped out of faster-than-light travel near Proxima IV. They expected to find a few defensive vessels that would quickly surrender when confronted with superior firepower. Instead, they encountered Admiral Grace Miller's Third Fleet. Grace had anticipated this confrontation. Though her fleet was smaller than the Exiled force, each ship carried innovations the Council races had never seen. The neural interfaces allowed her crews to react with unprecedented speed, while Susan Wallace's hybrid technology gave Commonwealth ships maneuverability that confused Exiled targeting systems. "They're moving into standard Exiled attack formation," reported Grace's tactical officer, "just as our intelligence predicted." Grace nodded. "Execute countermeasure protocol, Baker. Let's show them what happens when they underestimate humanity." The battle lasted just 4 hours. The Exiled, accustomed to fighting with overwhelming force against conventional tactics, found themselves outmaneuvered at every turn. Commonwealth ships seemed to predict their movements before they happened, striking from unexpected vectors and coordinating in ways the Exiled hierarchy couldn't match. By the time the Exiled commander ordered a retreat, they had lost 7 vessels while only disabling 2 Commonwealth ships. News of the battle spread quickly through Council space. A minor, exiled species had defeated a Exiled battle group. The implications were significant. The Galactic Council called an emergency session, with the Exiled demanding punitive action against the humans. Other council members, however, were more cautious. "These humans control resources we need," noted the representative from the Trillion Mercantile Union. "Perhaps negotiation is preferable to conflict." Within the Commonwealth, the victory was celebrated, but leaders understood its implications. They had revealed their strength sooner than planned. "We need to solidify our position quickly," Paul Bennett advised the Commonwealth leadership. "The Council won't ignore us any longer, but we can use this visibility to our advantage." In the months that followed, Paul led diplomatic missions to various Council species, particularly those who chafed under Exiled trade dominance. He offered favorable terms for quantum crystal exports and demonstrated other Commonwealth innovations. Many minor Council species, impressed by both human technology and their defeat of the Exiled, began establishing regular trade routes to Commonwealth territory. The Exiled, unwilling to risk another military embarrassment, reluctantly recognized Commonwealth borders in exchange for negotiated access to certain resources. Admiral Miller oversaw the establishment of defensive outposts along the new Commonwealth frontier. "They won't underestimate us again," she told her officers. "Next time, they'll come better prepared." As human settlements expanded and solidified their borders, the scattered colonies of exiles had become something the Galactic Council could no longer ignore. A legitimate power with territory, resources, and military capability that rivaled their own member states. The Grand Assembly Hall on New Terra was filled to capacity. Representatives from all human settlements had gathered for an historic announcement. 100 years after their exile from Earth, the scattered colonies had united into a formal political entity, the Terran Commonwealth. Today marks our transition from survivors to shapers of our own destiny, announced the newly elected Commonwealth Chancellor. What began as punishment has become our strength. In his laboratory on Proxima Station, Eric Martinez made final adjustments to his prototype jump drive. Unlike standard faster-than-light engines used throughout the galaxy, his design didn't rely on established principles. It was something entirely new. Starting test sequence, he told his team. Powering quantum matrix. The device hummed to life, creating a small but stable wormhole that bridged space in ways Council science had deemed impossible. Early tests suggested the jump drive could reduce travel time by 70% compared to Council ships, while using half the energy. "It works," Eric whispered, watching the data stream across his monitors. "We've done it." The implications were enormous. With this technology, Commonwealth ships could outpace any Council vessel, reaching distant systems faster and more efficiently than ever before. Within months, the first ships equipped with jump drives began serving Commonwealth worlds. The reduced travel time accelerated trade and strengthened connections between human settlements that had once been painfully distant from each other. Council species took notice. The humans, once dismissed as primitive exiles, now possessed technology that outperformed their own. Minor Council races began approaching Commonwealth outposts, seeking access to human innovations. Olivia Russell, appointed as the Commonwealth's first ambassador-at-large, saw opportunity in these approaches. Like humans, many species at the Council's margins have been overlooked or exploited by dominant powers. The Council values stability over fairness, she explained to Commonwealth leadership. Many species chafe under their hierarchy, but lack alternatives. We can provide that alternative. Olivia began a diplomatic campaign focused on species that had been relegated to secondary status within the Council. She offered favorable trade terms, technological exchange, and mutual defense agreements. The Commonwealth doesn't seek to dominate, she told a delegation from the avian Fasari, who had suffered under restrictive Council trade policies. We build partnerships based on mutual benefit. The Fasari were the first to formally ally with the Commonwealth. Others followed. The aquatic Mirians, the silicon-based Lithans, and several others who had been marginalized within Council space. While Olivia built alliances, Commonwealth Intelligence Director Ryan Phillips uncovered troubling information. His agents, now operating within Council space, had discovered evidence of corruption at the highest levels of Council leadership. The dominant species manipulate regulations to maintain their control, Ryan reported to the Chancellor. They'd been suppressing technological advancement that might threaten their position. This information proved valuable in Olivia's negotiations with potential allies. Species that had been denied access to certain technologies by Council decree discovered humans had independently developed these innovations and were willing to share them. Commonwealth territory expanded not through conquest, but through alliance. Systems that had reluctantly followed Council dictates now saw a viable alternative in partnership with humans. The Council's response was divided. Some species pushed for military action to contain the growing Commonwealth influence. Others recognized the benefits of establishing positive relations with this emerging power. During a heated Council debate, the Tsilari representative demanded sanctions against the Commonwealth. These humans threaten the very foundation of galactic order, he declared. The representative from the Trillion Mercantile Union disagreed. The humans have built their position through innovation and fair dealing. Perhaps we should learn from them rather than oppose them. As the Council argued, the Commonwealth grew stronger. The jump drive revolutionized commerce and exploration. Neural interface technology continued to advance. Human adaptability, combined with contributions from their new allies, created a society that evolved more rapidly than the Conservative Council. On the Commonwealth frontier, A monument was erected to commemorate the 100th year since exile. It bore a simple inscription that captured the human journey. Cast out to perish, we chose to thrive. The species that had banished humanity to the galaxy's edges now watched with growing concern as those same exiles built an empire that increasingly challenged their dominance. The emergency signal from the Galactic Council came unexpectedly. After decades of tense relations, they were requesting immediate assistance from the Commonwealth. A devastating plague had broken out on several Central Council worlds. The disease spread rapidly, overwhelming medical facilities and resisting all conventional treatments. Death rates were climbing, and panic was spreading. "They want our help," asked the Commonwealth Chancellor, reviewing the message. "After everything they've done." Dr. Amy Wilson, the Commonwealth's leading medical researcher, studied the data the Council had shared. "This pathogen attacks neural pathways in a way I've never seen before," she said. "But there are similarities to radiation sickness we've treated in the Outer Rim colonies." Indeed, humans had developed advanced medical techniques during their years, dealing with the harsh radiation environments of their exile. These treatments had been necessary for survival in places the Council races couldn't even visit. "We can help them," Amy concluded, "but they'll need to grant our medical teams unrestricted access to affected areas." The Commonwealth leadership debated their response. Some saw an opportunity for leverage against the Council that had once banished them. Others recognized a moral obligation to help, regardless of past wrongs. "We send aid," the Chancellor finally decided, but with conditions. Those conditions included formal recognition of Commonwealth territory, removal of remaining trade restrictions, and permanent seats for Commonwealth representatives in Council proceedings. The Council, facing catastrophic population losses, had little choice but to agree. Within days, Commonwealth medical ships were arriving at the heart of Council space, places humans had been forbidden to enter just decades earlier. Amy led the primary response team to Alteris Prime, the Council's central world. The streets were nearly empty, with only emergency vehicles moving between quarantine zones. "Your species was wise to develop immunity to such pathogens," noted her auxiliary guide, whose scales had dulled from the illness though he had survived. "We never anticipated such threats." Amy didn't correct him. Humans hadn't developed natural immunity. They had created treatments through necessity and innovation during their exile. The difference was important. For weeks, Commonwealth medical teams worked tirelessly. They established treatment protocols, synthesized medications, and trained Council medical staff. Gradually, death rates declined, and new infections slowed. The cure Amy developed combined radiation therapy techniques pioneered on human colonies with synthetic compounds that Council science had never explored. It worked across different species, saving millions of lives. As the medical crisis eased, a political one emerged. Many Council worlds had been abandoned by their governments during the panic. Trade routes had collapsed, and security forces had withdrawn to protect central planets. Into this vacuum stepped the Commonwealth. Their ships, using the advanced jump drives, could reach isolated worlds faster than Council vessels. They delivered supplies, maintained order, and established communication links that had been severed. Gregory Thompson, appointed to lead Commonwealth diplomatic efforts during the crisis, found himself effectively governing regions the Council had abandoned. "We're not here to take control," he assured nervous local officials on a frontier Council world. "We're here to help stabilize until proper governance returns." But on many worlds, proper governance didn't return. Council representatives who had fled during the crisis found their legitimacy questioned. Local populations, grateful for Commonwealth assistance, began looking to human advisors instead. Gregory saw an opportunity. "The Council structure has proven brittle during this crisis," he reported to Commonwealth leadership. "There's growing support for reform." Using the political capital gained through their plague response, Commonwealth diplomats proposed a restructuring of the Galactic Council. The hierarchy that had placed certain species in permanent positions of authority would be replaced with a more representative system. The old council failed its citizens. Gregory told the Emergency Assembly of Species Representatives, "We propose a new covenant based on contribution rather than historical privilege." The dominant council species objected strongly, but they found themselves outnumbered. Minor species, long denied equal voice, supported Commonwealth proposals. Those whose populations had been saved by human medical teams felt a debt of gratitude. When the final vote came, the old council structure was dissolved. In its place rose a new Galactic Assembly, with representation based on population and contribution rather than species hierarchy. The Grand Hall of the Galactic Assembly fell silent as Commonwealth Chancellor Laura Peterson approached the podium. 200 years had passed since humanity's exile, and now representatives from every major species watched as a human prepared to address them as the most powerful political figure in the galaxy. "We gather today to celebrate not the dominance of any one species, but the triumph of cooperation," she began. "The Commonwealth did not seek to rule, but to inspire. Yet here we stand, at the center of a new galactic order." The journey from exile to dominance had been remarkable by any measure. In 2 centuries, humans had transformed from refugees to leaders of the largest political alliance in known space. Former council leaders, now representatives of their individual species rather than a controlling bloc, sat in the audience. Some still harbored resentment, but most had accepted the new reality. The Commonwealth's technological innovation, military strength, and diplomatic skill had proven irresistible. "We offer membership to all who accept our founding principles," Laura continued. "Equal rights for all sentient beings, free exchange of knowledge, and mutual defense against common threats." Following the plague crisis and council restructuring, many former council worlds had joined the Commonwealth. Their citizens had seen firsthand the benefits of human leadership during their darkest hours. Outside the Assembly Hall, Commonwealth ships filled the orbital lanes. At their center was the flagship of the Grand Fleet, the CNS Unity, commanded by Admiral Jason Lewis. The Unity represented the pinnacle of Commonwealth technology, a vessel that combined human innovation with contributions from dozens of allied species. Its neural network could be operated by any Commonwealth species thanks to adaptive interface technology. Its jump drive could cross the galaxy in days rather than weeks. Its defensive systems had never been breached in combat. "Status report," Jason requested as he toured the command deck. "All systems optimal, Admiral," responded his executive officer, a Meridian whose species had been among the first to ally with humans. "The defensive perimeter is secure." The Grand Fleet now served as the primary peacekeeping force throughout former Council space. Pirates, raiders, and aggressive unaligned species had learned to fear the sight of Commonwealth vessels. Back on New Terra, the Commonwealth's capital world, the Central Archives housed the complete history of humanity's journey. Once simple survival logs from the early colonies, these records had become the narrative of an unprecedented rise to power. School children of all species now learned how humans, exiled to die in the harsh outer rim, had instead forged an empire through innovation and determination. The story had taken on almost mythic qualities, the underestimated species that returned from banishment to lead the galaxy into a new era. In research laboratories across Commonwealth space, human scientists continued to work alongside specialists from allied species. This collaboration produced advances at a pace the old Council could never have matched. The Xilari, once among humanity's strongest opponents, had recently requested full Commonwealth membership after years as reluctant associates. Their ambassador now stood before the Commonwealth Admission Council. "We recognize that our assessment of human potential was..." The Xilari paused, scales shifting in a pattern that indicated discomfort, profoundly mistaken. "We seek to join the Commonwealth as full partners in this new galactic community." Such admissions had become common as former Council powers recognized the benefits of Commonwealth alliance over continued opposition. As Chancellor Laura concluded her address to thunderous applause, she reflected on the irony of humanity's journey. The exile intended to eliminate human influence had instead removed the constraints that might have limited human potential. free from council restrictions and forced to adapt to extreme environments. Humans had developed technologies, social structures, and perspectives that would have been impossible on Earth. Their very struggle for survival had forged the strengths that now made them the dominant force in the galaxy. 200 years ago, we were cast out and overlooked, Laura said in closing. Today, we extend our hand not in dominance but in partnership. The stars belong not to humans alone, but to all who share our vision of what the galaxy can become. As night fell across Commonwealth worlds, citizens of 1,000 species looked up at the same stars. Stars now protected, connected, and made accessible through the empire that rose from exile, the empire that humanity had forged against all odds.